Son 4:30, weón. Toy Biz Ghost Rider. Nah. Chat, Gune Rider. Total. Chat, el putísimo Gune Rider. Muy bueno, muy bueno, muy bueno. Si viste el hora de completo de Julio Spectre, Chan puede ver un video de 9 días. No, porque eso duraba como 5 horas, weón, y lo vi en la noche.
I got very sick when filming this, so I guess deal with it. So animation on YouTube has come a long way since its start around
No, el Let's World, weón. Esa serie culiada que todo el mundo conoce, pero nunca ha visto nadie, weón.
2008. When a lot
Yo
of
la
creators
conozco,
present
en
on
mi puta vida
platforms
la
like
he visto,
Newgrounds,
weón.
which was one of the primary hubs for animated content at the time, and still kind of is. I just remember playing games on it as a kid, like Age of War and The Last Stand, which apparently became its own game. But a lot of creators started uploading their
Alguien que la conoce más por porno que por persona. ¿Sabían que la Jaden se volvió VTuber? Ahora un cocodrilo, weón.
content from Newgrounds to the new and upcoming YouTube, which as of 2007 had just introduced its partner program.
Hace tiempo, weón. Pasó como hace 2 meses, weón.
Videos, but in the early days this led to animations like the ASDF movie and Nyan Cat.
Fue ADCF Movie, weón. Era muy bueno, chat. ADCF Movie, weón. Era muy bueno.
Both of which were abused more than any black tar heroin of those days because you could not
Era así, pero siguen. Yo digo era porque no han sacado más, weón.
escape them. Then in the early to mid 2010s, YouTube animation got another big boost with things like storytime animations, which led to the rise of creators like Domik, Swooz.
Era todo su tiempo, total, weón. Igual el Storytime, weón. Una puta mierda, weón. No me gusta la animación de Storytime, weón. Una puta mierda toda, weón. No la de pelo. La única buena es la de pelo, weón. Porque, no sé. Habla chistoso y grita mucho, weón.
YouTube, Jade Animations, and
¡No! ¡La lesbiana! ¡Oh!
ones out, which since
Ese es bacán. Ese bueno es bacán también.
then has inspired the next wave of creators doing similar content. Animation on YouTube has come a long way since it first started, but what hasn't changed is the
es muy mayor para su edad, total, no.
fact I am so grateful.
No parecís de 13, weón. No parecís de 2 semanas de gestación. No parecí de 2 semanas de gestación.
I'm not an animator. Having to sit there for hours on end with keyframes and drawing the same thing 24 times over, slightly changed just
No,
for
total, suena horrible. Animar suena horrible, chat, weón. Literalmente, chat. Tenés que dibujar el mismo dibujo movido 0,5 milímetros para la derecha, weón, como 20 veces. Horrible, ¿no?
single second of animation just for your software to inevitably fail and you have to start all over again. Yeah, you can take the
Son 20 juegos por segundo. Tenés que dibujar 20 frames para 1 segundo, hermano. Suena putamente horrible, weón.
all torture in open winter air elsewhere, thank you very much. I'm not built for that. However, with the rise of animation on YouTube and its many gifts like giving us Zach Hadel, it was still unfortunately not immune from its fair share of infamous
Nuichi Animation, ese culiao, ese conche tu madre, weón, es muy random, weón. Ese culiao es muy random.
creators. And don't get me wrong, it's doing better than other similar communities, especially the art commentary community.
No, I will say that, embarrassingly, Jaden Animations is kind of my YouTube crush. Of course, she's way out of my league, and I'm not talking about the real her, I'm talking about her cartoon character.
¿Qué?
Nobody, and I mean nobody, forced you to say that, so why did you tell us? But despite the YouTube animator
¿Qué? El Nuxtaco, literal el Nuxtaco. El día son 12, pero es solo para corregir y flexear que tengo una amiga animadora.
community being revered for its talent, range of personalities, engaging stories, and just overall positive reputation, at the same time there are some creators that seemingly have the opposite effect. So today I thought we'd look at some of said creators and what they did to deserve their reputation as the more infamous side of YouTube animation. Starting with one that may be viewed as a more gentle kneecapping compared to the
Hay
other.
un culiao que anima muy feo, weón. Que anima demasiado feo, weón. Entiendo porque a la gente le gusta, weón. Ojalá un hombre, weón. Hay un culiao aquí que dibuja muy feo, weón.
Earlier shows I mentioned, we don't make mistakes. We have happy accidents.
So one of the entries many
¿Quién?
would add to
¿Cómo
this
se llama,
list
weón?
is
No sé
Nutshell
cómo puta se llama el hijo de puta
Animations.
ese,
You've
weón.
probably come across their content in one form or another, especially if you are on YouTube Shorts or TikTok, which is another
sí.
reason to download Instagram Reels. But Nutshell started uploading in
A ver, describe. Fuá. No sé, weón. Que no sé cómo ponerlo. Es que hace dibujos muy feos, weón.
18, with a lot of his first animations actually using
A ver si lo encuentro en TikTok, weón. Porque este weón sale en TikTok a veces, weón. Y digo, oh, qué asco, weón. Voy a poner Animation,
Did you
weón.
know that in the starters?
Menos mal que no fuera un weón en pelota, weón. Me alegro. Menos mal que era un weón en pelota, weón. Menos mal que era un culiado en pelota, weón. Deme resultado. Ah, bueno, weón. Está bueno. Bueno. Genial, chat, weón. O sea, no hay más, weón. Esos son todos los videos. Estos son todos los videos que hay en TikTok. Bueno, lo intentamos, weón.
his
Hágasele.
own personality and voice.
Hi, what can I get you?
Hi, yeah. Can I get a number 2, 3 number 5s, a number 8, and a number 69?
His style
En 2025 sería a number 67. En 2026, el año de nuestro señor, sería Give me a 67, please.
was very similar to the starting point of many other big animation channels. But anyway, back to Nutshell and his earlier animations.
And number
Their
6,
art style was constantly developing and changing with each video, topics varied dramatically, and usually their earlier content makes them seem like a completely different channel when you compare it to their later content, but Nutshell would deviate slightly from other animation channels. Whilst yes, if he kept making the story time and more personal videos, it may have potentially panned out in the future like other animation channels, but he didn't do
Cuando
that.
hablan de
Instead, he
racismo, chat, cuando hablan de racismo, yo quiero racismo, weón. Ah, sí, este es muy bueno, weón. Este niño culiao en la raja. ¡Gallo culiao lloro! Rotoscopía. Rotoscopía. Muy bueno,
found
weón.
the type of
Muy
content that
bueno.
was a lot less personal
Muy
but
bueno,
a
muy
lot
bueno.
more profitable in terms of channel growth. And that was animated meme content, taking the audio of a popular meme of the time and animating it most times with his own interpretation of it.
Helicopter, helicopter. Helicopter, helicopter.
Una puta mierda, chadón. Puta que el teleporte es un saco, wea. Te le pasó a ser guaso. ¡Ah! Sí, ese culeado. Ya, sí. Sí, el weón que se cree vivo, weón.
Eventually he would build
Sí.
up a library of said short videos and most were getting a decent amount of views.
Todos lo
But
papiaron,
YouTube wasn't
weón,
the
claro, dibujar sos por la raja, weón, a creerse, weón, un White Knight.
only platform he was performing
Weón, no,
well
culiao.
on, as in
Saco
2020
wea.
TikTok was reaching new heights in popularity and he had started uploading his content there as well, which to say the least was one of his best decisions since a lot of his videos racked up millions of views and some even went viral, whilst also directing
yeah.
a small amount of people back to his YouTube channel where they could see content like behind the scenes of some of the animations, and in general some of his longer form content. However, in 2021, with the launch of YouTube Shorts, he would evidently start using that as a vehicle to push his channel further, and his YouTube channel began to mirror his TikTok. He put a lot more effort into short form content than anything else, which was an obvious decision since this was the content that
Defiende con
got him
tema del
the
ring,
most
weón.
attention, and with this he would reach 1 million subscribers shortly after in 2022. At this time, both his
Increíble para alguien que solo, weón, anima sobre memes, weón. No, loquísimo, ¿no, chat?
art style and signature characters were easily recognizable, and he would start to be noticed outside of the platforms he regularly
Most popular animator in TikTok. TikTok.
Even at this point, he did face some criticism, like how in some videos he would not credit those behind the original audio or idea, and some viewed his content as subjectively cringe or somewhat over-sexualized for the audience he had at the time. But such criticism was outweighed by the success he was seeing from his short-form content, and the fact that the audience that regularly viewed his content didn't really seem to care. By September of 2024, he had now reached 9 million subscribers, and still he would continue to grow from there.
Wow.
In the current day, sitting at over 10 million subscribers. So you're probably wondering, how can this guy, apart from the critiques I already mentioned, be hated and considered one of the more infamous YouTube animators? Well, I'm getting to it. Calm down, you
Ojo, ojo, ojo.
ADHD-riddled
Chat, se viene, weón, se viene. La debacle. Pensé que ya habíamos acabado con estos memes de mierda, weón. ¿Por qué me hacen esto? El de si ya, no después, weón, es muy bueno, weón, es muy bueno. Cuidado, es el si ya versus no después, es muy bueno, weón. John Cena que desayuna, va, normalito, normalito. Felicidad, felicimo. León, total. Goku, Kumku, weón. Ah, increíble, weón, Kumku, weón. Duro.
Well, in January of 2025, the commentary YouTuber Bido999 would make a video where
El canal más corrupto de YouTube, ojo.
animators had contacted him to share their
Me decía jugando con la mujer invisible, oh, que era un culazo, weón, increíble.
experience with Nutshell, because Nutshell wasn't doing these almost daily animations by himself. As a matter of fact,
¿Cómo?
it was alleged at this point he wasn't doing much of the animation at all. But you wouldn't know that because he wasn't actively crediting the people behind these videos. And in the video they go on to explain how Nutshell had an army
El gusano borra va durísimo,
of
weón.
animators, apparently up to 20,
Culeo tiene 20 weones trabajando para él. 20 indios. Hacinaron una pieza, weón.
with more often than not most being offered $50 per animated video, despite
¿Qué? Culeo le paga $50 a cada uno por video. No, hermano, ese weón los tiene. Están más negreosos, culiados.
Nutshell making significantly more per video. One of said animators
Hermano, ese culiao los tiene más negreados,
apparently
weón.
spent 8 hours per video, and the quality showed, but after only getting paid $50 and sometimes only getting paid after doing 2 videos for him,
Hermano, hermano. Culiao, pero si hay gente en Twitter que cobra es $50, weón, por una animación culiao como de menos de un segundo, weón.
and there was known issues with how long it would take for him to pay said animators.
The most gotten without paying me was like 2 to 3 weeks max. Increíble. Y no
So
paga
with how many
encima, weón.
hours this animator specifically was putting in, this meant they were getting paid around $6 per hour, which is well below poverty level.
Hermano, pagaste $6 la hora, weón. Rosa la explotación laboral. 6 lucas la hora. Pero, weón, si un día, la hora de trabajo cuesta como a cuánto, weón. El día de trabajo está como cuánto, weón. ¿20 lucas?
Levels, that is straight up sewer levels. And another animator reached out, and it only took them an hour and 30 minutes to make their animations for him, with significantly less quality compared to the other animator, and despite doing less work, they both got paid.
Animador 1, 23 videos, 84 millones de visitas, $12,000 generados, $1,200 pagados por 184 horas de trabajo. Culiao. Hermano, horrible, weón. Le pagó 1,200 por 100 horas, weón.
The same, even when the one that put more effort in got more views. Now I know animators are notoriously underpaid, and you
No, claro, weón. Ya de por sí los animadores culiados están como degradados a ser básicamente, weón, carne de cañón.
You can question the morals of Nutshell doing this, especially only paying $50 per animation, even though they technically carry his channel and most definitely should be paid more, but these animators agreed to do this work with these conditions. From the video, they were told the price beforehand. From what was seen, they were not promised that they were going to be given credit for their work. He even before forbid one of the animators from just commenting on the video saying they drew it, because his agency didn't like it and the channel isn't supposed to have a face or any identity to it. So yes,
What?
he is underpaying them, and that sucks, but as adults, they are agreeing to be underpaid. No matter how many hours they put towards the content, with once again no credit, they still agreed to do it and produce the animations. They could negotiate for more pay or to actually be credited, but admittedly with my own speculation, he might have just dropped them and gone for somebody that would take the 50 buckaroos and not take credit, but in my...
Total, no, vamos a buscar otro culeo random. O sea, si los buenos dicen no, no queremos hacer nada, weón, luego los van a tener otros 10, 20 buenos que quieren trabajar por $50 la hora, weón.
Opinion, these animators are adults.
Video.
They weren't forced to do these animations. They could have refused, but they still did
Te
the
vamos,
work and
te vamos a pagar el 1% de las visitas, weón.
accepted the payment they were offered. And from my understanding, it's not like there were contracts or they were employees of him. It was mostly like commission work. But the key word there was as adults. As further in the video and in their follow-up, it's discussed that allegedly Nutshell commissions a number of animators that were underage, which is quite a step up from just fucking over adults to make a profit, which still looks bad, but they are adults. But
Culeo van a ir cabros chicos. Nah, increíble, weón.
if those that are being reached out to are underage and are probably less aware and don't know any better
Parece que un kiwi. Yeah, fucking kiwi.
compared to the adults, yeah, it starts to look a lot worse. It starts to look a lot like child labor.
Parece un
On top
kiwi.
of him apparently telling them they can do work whenever they want, but then apparently gets frustrated and lectures them when they don't do the work he told them they can do.
Mentalidad de fábrica china, weón. Culeado, weón. Le aprendió las mañas, weón, a China, weón. Este clip, weón. Este clip de Family Guy, weón. Chinese Factory. Family Guy. Weón, este meme, weón.
Oh, damn. I say, I seem to have sewn a shoe to my hand. May I go to the nurse? Replace him! Faster!
¡Más rápido! ¡Anima! ¡Anima!
Do whenever. Yeah, it doesn't look good and is very morally wrong, but he would later respond to the video and the claims against him, basically saying what he was doing wasn't illegal and he was correct, but
Chat. No lo niega. Solo dice que no es ilegal. O sea, el hijo de puta ni siquiera lo niega, weón. Ni siquiera dice, no, eso es mentira, weón. Dice, no es ilegal.
morally wrong and possibly taking advantage of people who don't know any better. Yeah, but he eventually took down his response video, and in future videos he did start crediting the creators that animated the videos. It's unsure if he did start paying
Por la ley no es ilegal, moralmente cuestionable es quedarse corto, weón.
these people well after
Pero
the
bueno.
situation, and it didn't have
Que el mundo sin negrear gente de escasos recursos, weón.
any long-term effects on his channel. It still does pretty well to this day, but I will say his reputation has been significantly affected and is still somewhat negative to this day since it happened.
Do you suspect some alien subterfuge behind this
Juan Oso, weón.
So James Bear was a
Juanito
YouTuber that
Oso.
started uploading in
Eso no
2014,
lo conozco.
and in his earlier content you could see he was clearly inspired by the late Ed's World's YouTube series, even attempting
Eso
to
lo
make
conozco
his
yo,
own
no.
version of it called Jam World, which continued all the way to 2018, but you
El
probably won't
incestuoso. Ya
recognize
empezamos mal, weón.
some of his earlier work. You would more
Yo le hacía fandom a sus videos. Hermano, que.
recognize his animations
horrible,
for
weón.
specifically this
No.
character, Claire. And videos like After November are reference to what happens after No Nut November. Nothing happens, by the way. It's not like the Shangri-La Easter egg. Your semen doesn't get a pack-a-punch or some shit. But James started to gain more traction around
Bueno, adivina mi
2019.
cara cuando me enteré que este culió a su hermana menor. Pero está rica el hermano, no, weón. Pero está rica el hermano, no, weón.
Especially on videos involving Claire, in which he would soon reach 100,000
Es que igual está
subscribers.
rica. A ver, pasen foto. Rolen foto, weón. Rolen foto.
in December of the same year, and his channel would continue to grow from there, reaching 300,000 subscribers
No fue solo que creaciones.
in
Hijo de puta, weón.
September of 2021.
Qué malo,
Now, I
weón.
could say James was a very promising animator, and he potentially could have become an even bigger animator in the future, but one, it was too early to tell, and two, in the following year of 2022,
La verdad sobre Juan Oso, no.
James Bear's YouTube career would come to a crashing halt, all down to his own deplorable actions. Just to warn you from this
¿Qué?
point on, the things
Porque
discussed
siempre vemos estas cosas, porque nunca vemos chicas lindas metiéndose en un baño, weón. ¿Qué va a querer que juegue rechar, culiao, weón?
get quite disturbing
¿Queréis
and
que
graphic.
ponga, weón, el... ¿Queréis que ponga el video de esta 60 de las minas bañándose?
So viewer discretion is advised going forward. Don't say I didn't warn you. This is about to get very, very bad very, very fast. So in 2022, a
Siendo sincero, weón, el incesto, weón, ya como que no es lo porque podía ser en la vida, weón. Hay cosas peores como, no sé, weón, CP.
post would be made on Twitter
O
by
matar a
someone
alguien.
called Lelo Does Art about the very disgusting things James had done. But James at that point had been exposed for
Chat,
these
si la gente lo hacía en los 1500, weón, era bueno, weón. Chat, si lo hacía un rey en los 1500, era pureza de sangre. Si lo hago yo, soy un degenerado. ¿No? Doble estándar, weón. Doble estándar total, doble estándar, weón. Pensé que estaba en un contenido inglés. No. Aquí sabemos inglés, weón, fuimos al colegio. Aquí sabemos inglés, fuimos al colegio, weón.
same things multiple times, and multiple people had known about them beforehand. Because James was apparently very open about this,
¿Ustedes saben
especially in
inglés?
conversation.
¿Vos
But
no?
the first
Qué
document
guay de tratado
about
mental, weón.
this was posted in 2017, but the document was basically unreadable, and the guy that posted it had his own motive, which was to get James to break up with Claire, an actual person, and was James's
Chichota,
girlfriend. And the person that made the document wanted them to break up because this guy was an ex-boyfriend of
Escuela
Claire.
Pública de Uruguay. ¿Acaso no estudiamos vaca? Yo soy inglés, francés y portugués. Pues bueno, está bien. Lo idioma simple, no, claro, weón, porque dos son derivados del latino, weón, y uno básicamente, weón, es universal.
Claire had broken up with the person that wrote the document
Claire,
and then started
maraca
dating James.
mamá?
So basically his motive was revenge, not bringing to light the things James had done.
Chat, ¿sabían? Chat, ¿saben cómo se dice inodoro en brazuca, weón? Chat, ¿saben cómo se dice inodoro en brazuca? Cagódromo. Cagódromo. Lo vi en un post de Twitter, weón, y me dio mucha risa, weón.
And that is later supported because he would blackmail James, saying if he didn't break up with Claire, he would keep the document up, and they would strike some sort of deal, leading to the document poster publicly admitting the document was false and fabricated. Now, it's probably
Disculpe, señor, me voy al cagódromo. Total,
because of
así.
things like
De
this,
ese
before
punto, weón.
2022, the claims against
Literalmente
James
así.
went unnoticed. That and because every time James responded or even admitted to the things he did, he would delete the response or private his
¿Pero
account.
qué hizo,
and each
weón?
time
¿Qué
his
hizo?
responses were either lost to
¿Se culió a su hermana?
time, not well documented, or fell on deaf
Filho
ears.
da puta,
In
uno lleva tu
2022, the
cagódromo.
user
Total.
Lola Does Art made a post on Twitter with an entire archive of all the documents, James's previous responses, and finally the story had reached a wider audience, and evidently James's audience. Now I've prolonged this long enough, but what did James do? Well, to
¿Qué
be
hizo,
blunt, as
weón?
far back as 2013, when James had just become a teenager, he had a sexual relationship with his sister, who was 4 years younger
¿Cómo?
than him. He would discuss this with multiple people in screens with his
cuánto?
sister 2013 when James had just become a teenager.
O sea, apenas adolescente serían 14, 12 años, ¿no? La hermana tenía 10. La hermana tenía 10 años, weón. La hermana tenía 10 años, weón. Duro. Hermano, ¿qué es esto? ¿Qué guau, weón? Weón, ni Japón. Ni Japón se dio tanto. Sexo, poto, semen, lamer.
He had a sexual
Vagina,
relationship
vagina,
with his sister, who was 4 years younger.
Sexo. S-E-X-O. S-E-X-O. Sexo. ¿Cómo que no la arruinaron al vino? Ya, pero eran gemelos, weón. Los dos tienen como 17. O menos, no sé, weón.
Than him. He would discuss this with multiple people. In screenshots, he blames most of it on depression, his health, and his dad emotionally abusing him, which didn't excuse him from anything. He would say this happened multiple times, all the way to 2016, and even an excuse that it was all consensual, which doesn't help anything considering her age. She was the victim. But
no, si se culó a la hermana porque tenía depresión. Mi papá me pegaba. Así que me culé a mi hermana.
quickly after this surfaced, he rightfully lost his platform. He tried explaining himself multiple times with different excuses, but it didn't work.
Mi respuesta final.
In 2024,
no, claro.
he would make his 8th and last response before going silent on all platforms. Around that time, someone claiming to be his sister
Rape, incesto, no safe for work, no claro.
would come out with their own document claiming James didn't stop what he was doing in 2016 and continued to SA her, with his last attempt being in 2020, and more about the things James had done in disturbing detail, and even that she had told her mother at one point and she did nothing, and the proof that she was the sister was a picture of his setup, and she asked if people could donate so she could escape her current living situation, but she would then take down the document due to her family apparently disagreeing with this choice, and apparently she did all of this because she was upset, and in James's response video she would apparently be present, corroborating the story that none of this ever happened. The thing he admitted to in DMs multiple times, even made public posts admitting to it when confronted, never happened.
This is
¿Qué? ¿Fue un bait? ¿Estaba baiteando, weón? Chat, esto... ¿Fue un bait?
Alicia speaking, or in other words, this is his sister speaking, and what my brother James is saying is true. First, I would like to give my deepest apology to everyone for spreading
He never fucking sister, total, weón.
misinformation about my brother and about my own family. Truth be told, that I only came forward because I was only upset, and my reasons for being upset were petty, and I had a falling out with a friend. Back in 2022...
Tiene voz de puta. ¡Hijo de puta! ¡Ay, qué conche tu madre! Tiene voz de puta, no, weón. Faltaría menos, weón.
When James was making his last big response on the whole situation, I was actually going to help clear his name back then, but he insisted that he would do all of this on his own, since he
¿Y qué
didn't
mierda el culio está jugando un juego de rol muy depravado en su mente? ¿Cómo, weón?
want me or any more of his family members to be involved after the drama, and especially the doxing situation. He basically took the blame for nothing. Even after all this time, it was never easy for him to admit that nothing happened between us, when truly he was innocent for the most part. Lastly, I want people to know that my family is not silencing me in any way. I overreacted when the police got involved for the second time.
Obviously, after this, people thought this wasn't her or James or the family forced her to do this due to things like previous doxing attempts and police being called to their house, but there would never be
Ahora que lo digas sin la pistola en la cabeza.
any answers if that was the case, because as said, James has been silent
Me encanta como la mitad de las thumbnails son la mina con las medias tetas, weón, al lado del weón.
since. But still to this day, James Bear is a name many regard with infamy.
Básicamente era bait. Era bait, chat, era bait todo. Todo era bait. ¿Y si la hermana tenía las medias tetas? Yo creo que sí, weón, así funciona.
So this person on the list wasn't well known within the animation community initially, but when this situation concluded, they wouldn't be known to just
Pero que era bait, que se culió la hermana, weón. Que se culió la hermana.
the internet, but much wider, primarily due to the things they did. This person is Cristalli, and they were a part of the animation meme community. Not like some of the content the previous people I talked about dabbled in, but a specific flavor of the animation community where it's basically like an AMV. It's not really...
Concha tu madre, se me reventó la tola.
Esa es la weá del traficante. ¿Qué traficante? ¿De órgano, weón? ¿De persona?
Funny like you would think a meme would be, but it's supposed to be satisfying to watch with the catchy music and potentially goofy animations. This type of animation has always had a home on YouTube and still to this day is quite popular, mainly in communities like
la buena alien azul que va a la... Ay, ¿cómo se llama esa maraca, weón? La que es chilena, weón. ¿Cómo puta se llama, weón?
Life, although in the aftermath of this situation and what
La
they
Spicy, ¿no? La Spicy, weón. Aquí no está, esta es la última one.
Exposed for, a lot of their content would be removed from the internet, but has been archived on re-upload channels. It's said they started making this content around 2017, and what was known about them around this time from what they told their audience is that she was a teenager from Guatemala who, apart from...
¿Guatemala? ¡Guatemala! No, durísimo, weón. ¿Sabías que esa buena es una animación porno? En varias. No me, la verdad no me extraña,
Her
weón.
native language was also pretty fluent in English, as seen through her regular interactions with her community through videos responding to
Veamos la cronología de FNAF. Comentario curioso random.
comments.
I thought to say hi like this. So here we go. Thanks to Delphi, to Chicken the Nugget.
Now, despite starting in 2017, her channel grew pretty fast, gaining 1,000 subscribers in the first few months, and nearing the end of the following year, almost 80,000 subscribers, and at their peak, 100,000 subscribers in 2019. However, such a fast rise was not without its fair share of controversies. The usual age for the audience of this type of content is fairly young, apparently.
No, claro, weón, de 13, weón, a, no sé, weón, 2 semanas de gestación.
13 to 24, but in my opinion, it's more towards the lower ages of that range. But they would start to receive some criticism for some of their uploads, which you could say were sexually charged, on top of the fact they had a Patreon that was straight up serving NSFW art for a
Sí, porno! Porno!
price, and with some of said art being of other YouTubers in the same niche as them, which not only is extremely weird to have on a YouTube channel that kids mainly visit, but making weirder NSFW art of other creators' characters that said kids can access for your own monetary gain is fucking terrible. Also around this time, people would start to notice some of their animations and artwork were traced from other creators. Who would start...
No sabes cómo estoy a dormir 8 horas desde que estaba trabajando. Imagínate caer tan bajo que tienes que calcar el porno, total, weón.
Receive some backlash for
Cometió el peor crimen de un animador, weón, calcar.
these actions, and a lot of creators she had traced would add fuel to the fire, publicly criticizing them, but the backlash wouldn't result in anything really happening for the most part. They would later apologize, essentially saying they had Parkinson's, and it was hard to draw because of that, and some would just brush this off as them not knowing any better because they were a young teen, but that excuse would only work
¿Tenía Parkinson? ¿Cómo?
if they were a young teen and actually who they said they were, because it would be discovered not only by some of their earlier uploads they had taken down, but by later allegations against them that Cristalli wasn't in their teens. They were actually 4 years older than what they said they were, and, was 20, and not only that, they were not a female at all.
¿Cómo? ¡Era femboy! Nah, loco, weón.
Hello everyone, I'm Animador, and today we're recording a new video to question and answer. That's it. Answer questions. It is or no?
And that voice you heard earlier, that was one of the many females he commissioned for the voiceover for videos, who also weren't very happy that they were not being credited for said work because Cristalli wanted to keep up this facade. So an adult man was basically running a YouTube channel pretending to be a teenage girl whilst also creating sexually charged videos they were tracing and advertising straight up NSFW content he was making on a different platform. Yeah. It gets worse, by the way. So the person behind
¿Cómo?
Cristalli was David Alejandro Pascual Argueta.
David Alejandro Pascual Argueta, hermano, ilegal, tres nombres normales, bueno, en Guatemala. No puedes llamarte David Alejandro Pascual. No puedes llamarte como José Ramírez, weón, Rodríguez.
Born January 7th, 1998. And when people started to
O una
slowly
mujer con placa de tener un vibrador, tendrá un vibrador en cada momento, Susano, weón.
find out he wasn't who he said he was, he would kind of go back and forth owning it and denying it. He would upload videos with his face talking and then he would quickly delete them after, and then he would go back to
No, weón, claro. Oye, aquí va a salir mal, pues, conche tu madre.
uploading the same content like nothing ever happened. But for a little while longer, he would still have a platform, down to some still not being aware he was a guy and some simply
El internet no olvida.
not caring. But that wouldn't be for long. Actually, not only would he lose his platform, he would also rightfully lose his freedom. Around 2018, a video would be uploaded by Lemmacat, someone that had previously done a collab with Cristalli, going into how he had sent her disturbing messages, NSFW content, and had been requesting inappropriate pictures of her despite her being a minor and him knowing her age. This video is also one of the reasons people found out who he actually was. And once again, you would think this would be enough to end Cristalli, but this situation wasn't covered significantly around this time. On top of the fact, Cristalli or David had weaponized his audience, harassing and even at one point doxing other creators who dare speak about his interactions with this minor. This meant that the name Cristalli was able to exist with somewhat of a following for a bit longer past 2018.
Maricón es pedófilo normal. No, total, o sea, otro día más en el campo, weón.
2019. And it also meant there would be more victims, with another case where he had apparently been dating a minor that was 8 years younger than him.
No!
When he was in his 20s, and he did the same thing he did to the other
¿Qué?
8 years younger.
¿Cómo que una mina de 12, conchetumare? Es culio raro. ¿Cómo que con una mina de 12? Loco.
Than him when he was in his 20s, and he did the same thing.
La edad perfecta, weón. Chat. La edad perfecta, weón. Un año más y se pasa. Un año más y se pasa, chat,
He did to the other victim. And two other creators who were also minors would come out with their stories on David, where he would once again message them inappropriately, request pictures, and send explicit pictures to them. And finally,
no, le mandó foto del pico, weón.
A lot more people would take notice, and eventually even more creators, with more victims coming out with their stories. With the amount of people that now knew about the situation, a number of reports would be made against David's YouTube channel and to David's local law enforcement, where David in April of 2019 would be taken into custody and have all of his devices seized, and all of this was recorded and covered on his local
¿Capturan? Espera, ¿con cosa calor? Youtuber guatemalteco acusado de distribuir material pornográfico de menores.
News. In an article regarding this, it would say that he was accused of receiving photographs of
¡Weón! ¡Loco! ¡A la cárcel por el cepecito, weón!
underage
Nah,
girls
loco,
and
weón.
making sexualized
No consumir, distribuir. Weón, las vendía después, weón.
anime copies of the images to then sell on illegal websites.
What?
The charge against him would be trafficking, in which he would only receive 3 years and 5 months in jail. And apparently, due to the length of the sentence in Guatemala, he could potentially pay a set fee to avoid going to jail at all. But he would still have to go on the sex offender registry and have to comply with anything the court has set, like house arrest or parole. Now, we don't know if he actually did get this offer to pay or if he did go to jail. There was no other news regarding this, and
No tráfico de personas, weón. Tráfico de CP.
obviously people were disturbed the sentence was so short. But by now, those 3 years and 5 months would be over, and despite his main channel being removed in 2021, some have theorized he is still on the
Total, el gringo aprende que la policía es corrupta.
internet operating another YouTube account, but there has been no significant evidence to prove these proposed
Yo solo
channels
conozco un
may be
tipo
his.
SP. No es cierto, punk.
Make sure to check out Jormy49's video on this. A lot of the information here was found through his video.
Hermano, loquísimo.